Okay, so we are live, and I'm just going to share this in another platform. Beautiful. Good morning, everybody. We are on the first series of Women Unleashed, where we are here to create intergenerational transformation through finding the power of your voice, unleashing the power of your story, and really learning how to redefine the future based on the lessons that you've learned from the past. In this series, I'm going to be spending time for the next 120 days with women from around the world, speakers, authors, and coaches who are currently helping and serving the world and other people through the modalities and the frameworks that they've created, which is extricated from the lessons and the trauma that they have themselves lived experience in their past. So these women have come here to serve with me. And today I am speaking with Lina Cebula from Canada. So Lina is from Ukraine originally, and she is a drug addiction and human sex trafficking survivor. Now, she was raped numerous times and had a baby at 14, and her first child had died of health complications at 3 months. And today she is a Christian, a social justice advocate. She's a blogger, a speaker, and she's the host of Loved and Beloved podcast, and also the author of Miraculous. It's an spiritual autobiography, and it's a story from hell to heaven. Lena, welcome to Women Unleashed. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
It is my honor. Look, so we have 30 minutes in this conversation. Can you please, as I introduced you, there are some already heavy stories in your background before you became the most inspiring and awesome soul that you are today. So I want to just ask you, if you don't mind, to share with us, can you enlighten us exactly what is human trafficking, and what are the myths that people misunderstand about human trafficking?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for your kind words. I really appreciate that. And human trafficking is the modern day slavery. It's actually recruitment and exercising control over the person to exploit them through sexual or the forced labor. And it's commonly thought that buying and selling people is something of the past, but in fact, there are more people trafficked today than any time in human history. Human trafficking can happen to anyone, but some people, of course, have more vulnerable than others. And significant factors are dysfunctional families or substance abuse or mental health concerns. And often traffickers will identify and they leverage their victims' vulnerabilities, excuse me, to create dependency. Because I think the biggest misconception we have, especially after seeing the movies like Taken, that they traffickers use force, but literally they most of the time the people being controlled with the fear of isolation, guilt, and shame, and misconception that traffickers prey on the victims that they don't know, which is in real time, it's most of the time the family and friends that involved. So
Wow.
that's two biggest myth I do believe we have to, and there's red flags, but those two is very important.
Mm.
Um,
Wow, that is very that really puts light to a lot of things that we don't know about human trafficking. And from what I hear from you is that it's not physical force taking you away from your house and dragging you along by force and forcing you to do stuff that you're kicking and screaming that you don't want to do it. A lot of time what I'm hearing from you is that it's a psychological and emotional manipulation of, and there might even be a stage of grooming, if correct me if I'm wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a really good word, grooming, because these days it's very hard to spot human trafficking, because if it was violence, if it was abuse, if it was so loud and destructive, anybody around would see it and take action, because they would understand that something wrong, something's going on. But the major problem is sometimes not the people who happening to, and not the people around them, to actually understand that this is the case of human trafficking.
Lena, how can we help by being observant? How can we observe this? And when we do have observations, how can we help other people?
Yes, absolutely. Well, definitely, if you see anyone in immediate danger, or you suspect someone to be in traffic, you have to call here 911 or your local police force. But the most important, you have to be vigilant, and you have to know specific signs. If you're going to be informed and look for those red flags right away when you see something suspicious, then you will ask question, and obviously I'm not talking about we have to be paranoid about all the strange thing that going on. I don't talk about fear or something that stranger danger and you have to scare your kids. But the awareness, it's different. Awareness when you know what to look for, and you come in with a sound mind and teaching your kids as well to protect yourself. But there's few things, like I want to name it for you, for grooming especially. Red flags for people who've been groomed for sex trafficking: being secretive about their activities, or having new clothing or jewelry that they cannot afford. If you see your friend or your child from nowhere start bringing cash home or a second cell phone, right away you have to be suspicious. Why this boyfriend showers you and lavish you with the stuff like that? What is he saying? Because the most important part what traffickers do, they try to separate the victim from their support system.
Mm,
And
okay.
that's when they can put them in shame, guilt, condemnation, and fear. And then they're gonna make them, oh, you cannot tell anyone. This
Mm,
is secret. This is between us. And that's how they manipulate. And especially our kids are so innocent, they love them most of the time. I know my case was different, but most of the time we are protecting our families and friends. So when something's going on, you right away think, and you can speak, and you can ask why this is happening, and especially if they have like second or secret cell phone, you just ask those questions. But guess what? The victims of human trafficking, and this is very behavioral, so please keep an eye on it, especially if you have a friend or your child being very joyful and bubbly and funny and always was going out, but now it's she is or he fearful or anxious or depressed or submissive or very tense or nervous or paranoid. And then especially if they have any signs of abuse or bruising or fracture, right away, that's a red flags. And if you see the branding symbols, especially names, like it's definitely a human trafficking situation. And yeah, just stay vigilant and ask questions.
yeah. Thank you so much for all those insightful observations that we can start to execute, like being aware and all these um, drastic changes that we need to be mindful of. And what I'll do for those who are listening is that I will provide Lena's website where you can reach out directly to her if you feel connected and have more conversations with her around these topics that we're talking about. So I really would like to now get to know about you. You are now a mother of three, and you're a social justice advocate, as a speaker, author, and you wrote this beautiful book. And but before this beautiful life, Lena, you had this life where you were in darkness. You were in human sex trafficking world. Can you give us a snapshot of how you got to that place? What was it like, and how, and how did you get out?
Absolutely. Well, I was born and raised in Ukraine, and my parents struggled in their marriage. So they became an alcoholics and lost their well-paid jobs. So the government turned off electricity and hot water for outstanding bills. And my home was infested with cockroaches, black mold, and yeah, we struggle in poverty, trying to survive. I was hungry all the time. I was literally starving. So my home was always full of strangers. They brought booze and drugs, and with parents who never really protected me. So in very early age, I became a target for those guys. And I was drugged in the basement of my own apartment and raped numerous times. So when I thought things couldn't get any worse, 1 month before my 15th birthday, I woke up with severe abdominal pain, and I was scared and confused. I actually ended up being in labor and deliver a baby girl. She passed away 3 months later, like you say, from health complications. But I knew something's gonna happen because I didn't know I was pregnant, and I didn't even know who her father was. So I started suffer with depression and anxiety. So I actually start using drugs and alcohol as a medication because I need to cope with my reality. So later on, I turned to heroin because it was better to be high than feeling worthless, helpless, hopeless, and abandoned and so broken. So years went by. I don't really remember next 3 years, but one day I was just feeling this awakening, and I really was tired of this lifestyle because I knew I gonna be end up in jail or I'll be dead. So I was seeking change. And this woman, oh my goodness, I met this beautiful woman through one of my friends, and she invited me to her house. She offered me coffee and sweets. And I was so impressed because I was a street junkie. Nobody cared about me this way. And she offered me a job. She not specific, just a job. And I didn't think about anything because I was, first of all, naive, but second of all, I just wanted to escape. And there's somebody who really cared about me. So I said yes, eager to escape without thinking anything. I still was on drugs. I vaguely remember airport and how I went through customs. I never know. And just one day I woke up hearing Muslim prayer, Allahu Akbar, run out. So that nice lady actually sold me into human trafficking into foreign country. But there it is. I went there, I submit to them. I followed the instruction to the T. I didn't fight against it. And that's how I went through airport. And now I advocating for these red flags. If you look in the airport and the young girl doesn't have her passport, why somebody else speaking for her? If she doesn't speak for herself, or very submissive, follow around, and this is the red flags to look for it, not only violence, although that can happen as well. So then I was trafficked from Egypt to Israel, and that's where they sold me in the brothel. So I actually been in the brothel for almost 2 years. And honestly, you never leave this kind of situation alive unless you have been rescued by the grace of God. I actually end up in a place that was family owned, and then nobody could like rape me or beat me to death. So later on, they actually allowed me to go home. And I was thinking I had some money saved up. I was thinking I gonna start a new life, but my trusted aunt stole and spent all my money. So I end up on drugs again because I was felt so betrayed and I didn't know what else to do. So I actually became number one drug dealer in my city because that was the available drugs and free drugs. And same, few years pass, I don't remember anything about it, except that I was already using dose of 5 people, and I felt it in my heart that I gonna end up in the cemetery or being murdered even. So I didn't know what else to do. Body always was my commodity, and I went and I sold myself again into sex trade. And why wouldn't I? That's all I knew what to do. But this time they trafficked me to Canada, and that's where everything changed actually. um yeah, and um what happened is here I got the opportunity through the people. That's I do believe it just grace of God that I have that opportunity to actually go to school to learn English. And I remember this woman telling me that in Canada you have rights. And for the first time in my life, I heard that I have rights as a human being. And that's what actually what triggered me to escape the sex slavery.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing such a brave, a powerful story that is, like we had a conversation before this live video that not many people actually come out alive of that from that kind of experience.
Absolutely.
So a couple of things that we also talked about before this live video is that how faith in God or faith in general really played a role in how you came out from this darkness, from this place where you couldn't imagine ever surviving from. But how faith was speaking into your life for a little bit when you were around 17, 18, 19 in a brothel when your grandfather was ill, and you prayed to God, whoever, whatever he is, even though you didn't really have relationship with God or any kind of faith, but you really loved your grandfather so much that all you knew to do was to pray for him because he was feeling ill. It was like some kind of a suggestion from a bodyguard from the brothel. And so you did the prayer, and the prayer was answered, you told me, Lena. And then you had this, when the prayer was answered, you had this little voice, beautiful voice in your head saying, well, God answers prayers. And so it was like a little seed that was planted. But then you also told me that it took you another 10 years to revisit that faith. Now, you've just conveyed the story to us when someone actually said those words to you. In Canada, you have rights. And even just those little few words, you have rights. It really injected that hope and inspiration for you to, I can live a different life. I can change my world. So I want to explore this, the role of faith, the role of, because for many of us, Lena, faith feels so different, looks so different. Even the word God, we have different ways of relating to our God. And so share with us how this faith, how God had really helped you after all those years of almost dying of those unspeakable stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, it was very interesting that that time when I was praying for first time. Well, I assume that is first time because um I I knew that I didn't deserve this audience. I knew that I didn't deserve the answer because I was prostitute, drug addict, alcoholic, and nobody ever treat me well. So I never assumed that this omnipotent God gonna look into my heart and actually hear my words and help me. But he did. And now he planted the seed, and it took very long time to actually grow that because my situation was the same, you know. And then when I was in Canada and I actually met my boyfriend, now he's my husband, but he ended up being a Christian boy. So I went to the church with his family just to be a nice, and then I heard my message of salvation, and I started looking into it because now I knew that this is what I'm looking for, because what it was talking about my worth and value. And I always knew that my life doesn't have worth and value. I never really wanted to die, but sometimes I didn't want to live either. And I knew that my body was had a price tag. And then in the church they were talking how you're priceless to God, how you're precious. I never felt that way about myself. And that's when my even my um, dialogue in my head, my mindset changed, because I understood that somebody cares, that somebody loves me. And then I look at my life and I knew that God protected me, because so many people died around me, and from human trafficking and from drugs, and they went to jail and their life were ruined and destroyed. So when somebody I share my story with for first time told me that I'm survivor, I was shocked. I never thought I am a survivor, but now I do understand, because honestly, like by the grace of God, he gave me this on purpose to get through and now to share my message with others.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. What I heard from you, that can be really easily understood, or some, for some of us, we are in, or who are listening here, we might be in there in the total darkness. And what I'm hearing from you, Lena, is that you always knew your body had a price tag, your life is worthless, and you didn't have any value in this world. But then when you went to because you met this boy and you went with him to the church just to please the family and for nothing else, but then you started to listen to the message of salvation and you heard the complete opposite of what you believed. You heard that you are priceless to God. You are loved. And so what I'm getting from that is when you, I think when, and it happened to me, when you're in total darkness and when nothing else works, I think it's worth trying to completely be open to the total opposite of what you know. Like to the complete, if the complete opposite is so bad, just be completely open to the miracle, just like your book, like it's so impossible to believe that it can only be a miracle, that if you just put your mind to be open to that, it actually is possible. Miracles do happen. And I think that was what's happened to you, is that you walked into a miracle. And many people walk into a miracle but they don't have the open heart or the open mind, and you did. You were there. I'm here, take me. I want to receive it, I want to embrace it. So, how do you now serve others? I know you're a mom, just like me, and it's a number one job. How do you serve other people other than your family? How do you give them inspiration and hope and transformation?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. First of all, you're amazing. You totally describe exactly how I felt in that moment when I give my life to Christ. And my book actually called miraculous because I do believe in miracles 100%. But now I'm actually, to be in traffic can cause severe trauma, and survivors often need intensive specialized services and support to rebuild their lives. Because by the grace of God, I learned and walked by myself. Because honestly, even like 5 years ago, nobody talked about human trafficking the way we're talking about now, and nobody talked about mental health as well. So now I'm so grateful that this movement actually started, and now we're on social medias and on all the platforms. But I did partner up with organization that fights against human trafficking, and they call Fight for Freedom, and they provide and counseling and therapy and housing support and skills building. It's absolutely need to be life skills building. and as well as they raising awareness on human trafficking through community education programs. So what I do, I'm raising awareness and I sell my book and I donate proceeds to Fight for Freedom as well. So they can invest into their programs. Another thing I really love to do, I love collaboration. So I bring the people who would like to support survivors with Fight for Freedom and I connect them so they can support the survivors and bring the awareness as well. But if you think like what you can do as well, you can raise the funds, you can volunteer, you can advocate, and definitely if you would like to help survivors, you can stay informed as well because it's very, very important. So that's what I do. I speak, I share my story, and I hope and pray my story encourage others to share theirs as well.
Wow, thank you so much. So we're going to put the link for Fight for Freedom so that people can get to know more about how they can help and reach out and get some support. And the last thing that I wanted to ask you as we close this is that you talk about how you help people is really to share your story, and by sharing your story, it would enlighten people and allow people um, to come out and find their voice. So, a big part of the Women Unleashed series is helping women out there who are generally, someone who had lived experience of trauma. And it could be a different trauma. It may be divorce, it may be abuse, it may be death, but they are in a place where they feel the calling to share their healing journey, and so that they can inspire others. So my aim is to for us women in this women series, to be able to create intergenerational transformation. So Lena, if you could give like a word of inspiration, hope, advice, insight to women who are in that space of, I want to help, I want to serve, I want to be a coach, I want to be a healer, I want to speak, I want to write a book through the power of my story, but I feel very scared. I don't know where to begin. What would your word of encouragement be?
Absolutely. First of all, if you have this desire to share your story and to make it impact, you have to follow your calling. You're gonna be afraid that people gonna reject you or be scared how they gonna judge you. Trust me, whoever love you, they will never leave you. It's number one. But then just start writing because sometimes what's stopping us, that fear actually doesn't allow us to speak up. And because being a victim of trauma, that's what we have no voice. So start writing, write everything you, and then next part is actually share it with someone. If you can speak and tell this someone, please choose wisely that trusted person who love you, who can pour into you. And maybe we don't have an army of people like that, but we all have one person who gonna love us through anything. Go to that person and share that. Especially, I didn't speak about this for 20 years. I never even could imagine that this is what I'm gonna be doing publicly. But I wrote this manuscript for 3 years. I didn't have a deadline. I just had my therapy with God. I have to look into my past from my new perspective when I already stable, loved, and forgiven. And I thought it's gonna be for somebody else, but it's really changed my life because I look back and I saw how faithful God was to me, how amazing I become by building my character and strength and the woman who I am now. So, and I got the compassion for myself, for that little Lena who didn't know any better. So I honestly loved on me and forgive me. I forgive my family as well. So right, first for yourself and love on yourself, love on your past, because nothing you can do about it to change it. But carry this guilt, shame, and condemnation into the now or the future will not help you. It's just a burden, and you have to set yourself free through the power of this forgiveness yourself. And then go with this. You can do the letter. If you can speak to someone, do it. For the first time I share my story with the person, I cry for 5 hours. That's how I share my story. But then I felt so light, because for 20 years it was just in my heart and in my mind. It still was there. And then I felt so relieved, because there was no pain anymore. And it was such a beautiful experience, because I always afraid to look back, because I thought there's the pain and the fear. But now it's different, because everything around me is different. But if you have still in a struggle, if you still in this mess, then you need help. Then you 100% need to write that letter and share with someone, because that someone will help you to rescue you. If you need some extra additional help, you can call the human trafficking hotline, or you can see some therapy or counseling to help you to get out from that maybe abusive situation or something like that. Just find one trusted person. Don't keep it this in you. It's not you. It's not because of you. And if you want to get out, there's always going to be someone to help you out.
Wow. Thank you so much. I just want to take a moment just I am so grateful for this conversation, and you are so absolutely right. What stops us is the fear of pain. It's too painful.
Mm,
It's too painful. But little baby steps, not even thinking about or not even aiming to share it out to a wide um,
absolutely.
public. It's just to write it for yourself and just find the one person that you can trust and express, and you talk a lot about love on you, love on your past, love on yourself. It's um it's it's uh, it, that which is the complete total opposite of pain. And we just talked about that miracle before then. So switching from the darkness to the miracle of light. Lena, you have been a most wonderful, wonderful company in this conversation, but a most amazing, amazing person that we all must listen to. Thank you for your beautiful insight, for your presentation of how God and faith had played the significant role in your transformation. And thank you for your honesty and your empowered vulnerability in sharing the story and for enlightening us about, the misconceptions in human sex trafficking. And so I close this series, the first one of Women Unleashed, with a grateful heart. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Lena. I love you all, and I will see you again in a few days.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Bye, everyone.